Hello everybody, today we're taking a look at my Miyoo Mini Plus and we're going to be adding Bluetooth to it. By default, the Miyoo only has speaker output and headphone jack output. The first thing we're going to need is a 5V step-up board, a micro switch, a Phillips head screwdriver, some mounting tape, a fine-tip soldering iron, some enameled wire, some solder, and some flux paste. First thing we're going to do is remove the battery. The battery isn't stuck down, so it should just lift out. And on the connector, the black wire is our ground and the red wire is our positive. There are 6 screws holding the two halves of the shell together. All 6 screws are identical. With the screws removed, we can separate the two halves of the shell. There's a couple of clips holding the two sides together, but they're very weak, so it's easy to separate them. So you can see how I've kind of laid out the parts here. You've got a switch in the top right. Just underneath that we've got a 5V regulator board. And then this is our Bluetooth board here. It's all mounted with that tape I showed you earlier, and I've placed them in a way where they won't interfere with the triggers. So on the left of our headphone jack, we've got our left, right and ground pads, and then also this pad here. When this pad is grounded, that switches the speaker off and to headphones. So if we ground that to the SD card, that's how we can switch between speaker and headphones. This is our battery connector. Remember, the left one is our ground and the right one is our positive. So we've got to get power from there up to our 5V regulator board. And then the output of the 5V regulator board can go to our Bluetooth board. The other connections we need to make is our left, right and ground from the headphone jack to the Bluetooth board. So let's go solder that up and then I can show you how that works. Remember to always use flux when you're soldering because that makes it much easier to make connections. So for the enameled wire, I usually just hold the end of it in a blob of solder on the iron, just to burn off the coating so we can make a good connection. So we're going to connect one wire to the ground. And one wire to the positive. So one thing to note about these 5V boards is that there's 2 resistors on there. Depending on which ones are populated, you get a different voltage out. So all we need to do to get 5V from this is we just need to remove both of these resistors. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to solder our inputs to a 5V board. So we're going to put the switch on the positive connection. And then we can connect our ground wire to the negative. Finally, we can connect our positive to the other leg of the switch. having a look at these first set of connections, you can see how the negative is going from the left leg of the battery connector up and to the negative pad of the 5V regulator. You can also see that the positive leg of the battery connector is going up and to the first leg of the switch, and then the switch is connected to the 5V regulator board. First thing I'm going to do is tin some of the pads with some solder. I'm also going to tin the 3 pads on the left of the headphone jack. I need to add some electrical tape over the exposed parts of the motherboard. And then we can add a wire to each of the 3 pads. Each of those wires we connected can now be soldered to the Bluetooth board on the other side. I'll draw up a diagram for all of the wiring for you to see it more clearly, and that will be in the description below. Now we can add a short piece of wire to the positive and negative pads of the 5V regulator board outputs. And then those can be connected to the Bluetooth board. Finally, we can tin up that pad at the bottom right of the headphone jack. And then solder a short wire to it. So all I'm doing here is I've scratched up the top of the SD card slot and I'm soldering a short wire to it. So we're going to connect the SD card slot to one leg of the switch and that headphone jack pad to the other leg of the switch. This means that when we flip the switch to on, it will ground that pad from the headphone jack to the SD card slot, and that will tell the Miyoo to switch the speaker off and use headphone output only. For the back shell, all I've done is cut a small slot out over each of the switches to allow them to be accessed from outside. To access the button on the Bluetooth board for pairing, all I'm doing is I'm melting a small hole through the back shell. You can use a drill for this and that might give you a cleaner result, but all you really need to do is make a hole in it. Now we can put it all back together. So we can put our power button back, we can put the volume rocker back in, then we can put the back shell on and put the 6 screws back in. Now we can plug the battery back in, making sure that our Negative, which is the black wire, is on the left, and the red wire is on the right. Then we can put our SD card back in if we've removed it, and power on the Miyoo Mini Plus. So now we can test our Bluetooth. So I'm putting my headphones in pairing mode here. Then we can use the button switch to switch from speaker to headphones. And then when we flip the top switch, our Bluetooth board turns on. If this is the first time you've turned it on, it should pair automatically. And the mod is working. So that's this mod done. Thank you for watching. I do have other parts on the way for the Miyoo Mini Plus, such as a speaker upgrade and buttons, and I'll be making a video on those soon. I hope you have a great day.